Hey everyone! Today we're going to be exploring New York City's Billionaires Row, but we're going to be doing it during the UN General Assembly Week. What you'll notice is that a lot of the Billionaires Row-esque buildings will be more filled than usual, I should say. And that is because a lot of the different world leaders and, let's just say, decision makers are in town. Today we had Bibi Netanyahu doing his speech at the UN General Assembly. So today the city is going to be extra packed with security. What we're looking at right now is 432 Park Avenue. This is one of the most controversial buildings on New York City's Billionaires Row. But I do like it because of these massive 10-foot by 10-foot windows that you have. This was developed by Madison, with the architect on the deal being Raphael Viñoly. Right where 432 Park Avenue sits used to be the old Drake Hotel. And when a lot of the different rock stars and celebrities would come stay in New York City, they used to stay at the Drake Hotel until Madison bought out the development site, and many years later made way for what is one of the tallest buildings on New York City's Billionaires Row, 432 Park Avenue. If you want to see what 432 Park looks like inside, you can go back on my channel. We've done numerous apartment tours of different units inside 432 Park. So if you're interested what the views would look like, go ahead and check that out. But you can even see some of the security and different Secret Service that are stationed outside this building, because there are a lot of diplomats staying in this building this week. Here you have this really nice outdoor space which is open to the public. 432 Park also has a retail component, which is the auction house of Phillips. It's interesting, as we continue on this tour, you're going to see the Steinway Tower, which sits at 111 West 57th Street, which also has a retail component, with the anchor tenant being an auction house as well. The 432 Park stands 1,396 feet tall, with around 125 residential units. Across the street you have 425 Park Avenue, which is one of the newest Class A office towers. This is the temporary headquarters of Citadel and Citadel Securities. However, Ken Griffin is going to be building 350 Park Avenue, which is going to be the tallest office tower on Park Avenue, eclipsing that of even 270 Park, which is the current headquarters of JP Morgan Chase. Citadel's office tower is going to be 1,650 feet tall. It's going to be an absolute monstrosity. Again, you may notice that looking all the way up and down Park Avenue, it's just Chevy Suburban after Cadillac Escalade. These are all the main security details for all of the politicians and diplomats. The further up Park Avenue you go, you'll see some more pre-war cooperatives that are very famous, that were designed by the famous Rosario Candela, who is an Italian-American architect, predominantly most notable during the Roaring '20s. One of his most famous projects is a little bit further up Park Avenue at 740 Park. What was that? Anyway, if you want to learn a little bit more about Rosario Candela, I've done a complete video series on that architect And one of the main reasons why he is so popular is because when he would design the interiors of the apartments, he would design them as almost mansions in the sky, if you will. So very, very expansive floor plates, tremendous entryways and foyers. But the most famous Rosario Candela building, in my view, sits at Sutton Place, at 1 Sutton Place South. In any event, on today's walking tour is going to be more of a modernist view. We're now on 57th Street, and this is the newly opened Four Seasons Hotel. This is also packed for the UN General Assembly. You'll notice all up and down 57th Street, you have very, very expensive retailing. Just before I started the video, right outside 432 Park, I saw Jonathan Gray walking into 432 Park Avenue just before I started filming. If you don't know who Jonathan Gray is, he is the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of private equity giant Blackstone. Blackstone was founded by Stephen Schwartzman. Here you can see the Fuller building that has the Fendi inside. You also have the Dior across the street. But then adjacent from us, you have 590 Madison Avenue, which used to be the headquarters of IBM. IBM still has a footprint in that building, but a much smaller footprint. And we do have a sort of a breaking piece of New York City real estate news. Speaking of private equity giant Apollo Global just signed over 100,000 square feet of office space in this building right here at 590 Madison. What a lot of people don't know is that 590 Madison connects via an atrium to the Trump Tower. So you do not have to leave the street, or I should say, you do not have to leave the office and go on the street in order to get from 590 Madison to the Trump Tower. And that is the building which I work in. So Apollo Global will be our new guest, if you will. There's the Dior store. A lot of these upscale retailers all along Billionaires Row require a reservation in order to go inside and shop. I believe you have to make a reservation on the app. They're doing this a lot in Miami now too. If you've ever been to the Miami Design District, you can't just walk in a lot of these stores. You have to reserve a reservation on the app. If you look across the street, you can see the Louis Vuitton store, but this is just the temporary store. LVMH Moet Hennessy, which is Bernard Arnault's company, is building a mega store on the northernmost side of 57th Street, which is currently covered in scaffolding. However, it's not the scaffolding that you'd expect. It's a more pretty scaffolding. Here you have Burberry. Give you one more shot of Louis Vuitton. I'm very excited of the decorations that are going to be coming up for the holidays. Thanksgiving, Christmas. We'll check out this store, Saint Laurent. And then, of course, across the street you have the flagship Tiffany building, which LVMH Moët Hennessy acquired Tiffany, and they put $500 million worth into the renovation. So $500 million Bernard Arnault spent on a brand new Tiffany store. Now we're on the corner of 57th Street and 5th Avenue. You're going to see a lot of notable buildings here. You could also really feel the energy of the city. More people are here than usual for the UN General Assembly. This is the Crown Building across the street, which is now the Aman New York, which is a Japanese ultra-luxury hotel chain. But in an earlier day, one of the greatest stock traders of all time, Jesse Livermore, if you've ever read the book Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, you might have heard of Jesse Livermore. He used to have an office right inside the Crown Building. And speaking of Jesse Livermore, looking a little bit further to our north, this is the Sherry Netherland Hotel. He unfortunately took his life in the cloakroom of the Sherry Netherland on Thanksgiving Day. Here you have Bergdorf Goodman. I'll give you all one more quick look at the newly renovated Tiffany's. At night it looks really gorgeous because those blue kind of black lights, or the backlights, come on. And this is the scaffolding that is temporarily covering the soon-to-be new Louis Vuitton flagship, but the scaffolding is in the formation of a Louis Vuitton trunk, which is quite interesting. You could also see the very top of 432 Park Avenue in the distance as well. As I've explained on previous walking tours, a lot of the ultra-luxury condominiums in New York City really attracts a lot of foreign buyers or foreign purchasers from other countries. And the reason why it does that is because a lot of the co-ops, the very sought after and desirable co-ops in New York City, are very, very hard to get into. If you've ever went through the process of purchasing an apartment in a cooperative, particularly some of the ones that are the hardest to get into, you have to go through an extensive board package, multiple rounds of interviews, and the co-op board can deny you or decline you from purchasing in the building for any reason. Even if the apartment's, let's say, a $25 million apartment, and you want to come in and pay all cash, well, in theory you could do that, but it doesn't necessarily matter how much money you make or you have. What's most important is if the co-op board will accept you or not. However, in condos, if you have the money, you could just write a check and move in, for the most part. Here you have the main entrance to the Amman, New York. Lots of nice cars out front. The building you're looking at right here is 53 West 53rd Street. This is technically a Billionaires Row building, but it is not on 57th Street, but it has the same caliber. They even have a restaurant in the building called 53. And that restaurant is actually quite good. I've eaten there a few times. I filmed a video on one of the hardest co-ops to get approved. That co-op is 740 Park Avenue. It is home to Steven Schwartzman and many other prominent Wall Street titans. And even to be entertained by the co-op board at that building, which, by the way, is one of Rosario Candela's most famous works, you need to have a liquid net worth, or just liquidity, of around $100 million. So to even be entertained by the co-op board. If I point the camera towards the sky, you could see that very skinny building, which is nicknamed the Stairway to Heaven building, or the Steinway Tower. This is the skinniest residential apartment building in the entire world. And it was developed by JDS, and the architect on the deal was Shop Architects. However, there's two components of that building. You have the original Steinway building, which was the headquarters of Steinway Piano, which is a landmark building, but JDS got special approvals to do a complete renovation and restoration of that facade, which you have apartments in the low-rise Steinway building, and then you have additional apartments in the skinniest residential apartment building in the world. It's quite unique. You have sweeping Central Park views, sweeping Midtown Manhattan views, and cybersecurity entrepreneur, as well as Shark Tank star Robert Herjavec, just closed on an apartment in that building. Here's another interesting view. You have 432 Park Avenue, 590 Madison, Trump Tower, and the Crown Building all in one. It's a very, very unique shot. Sometimes, kind of going back to our topic of conversation about buying in a co-op or buying in a condo, oftentimes the most sought after co-ops, it's almost a negative if you're a very famous person. So for example, you probably won't have Taylor Swift or Madonna getting approved at 740 Park, because they don't want all the noise, they don't want all this, the dog and pony show with the paparazzi. They want exclusivity and quiet. So I guess it pays to be rich and not famous if you want to get into some of the most exclusive co-ops in New York. This is now 57th Street and 6th, or Avenue of the Americas. My one main critique of Billionaires Row, which is 57th Street, is that it is a very busy and a very, very noisy street. 57th Street runs east to west, so you have traffic going eastbound and you have traffic going westbound. And it's a main thoroughfare for transporting a lot of construction equipment. One more look up at Steinway. My favorite neighborhood in New York City is Central Park South, which is just 2 blocks north of us. Even though Central Park South also runs east to west, it's a little bit more quiet, and you have Central Park right as your backyard. You can see it from this shot right here. You have the Quinn Hotel here. And now we are in front of Steinway Tower. And as I've said at the beginning of the video, you might have noticed that Phillips, the auction house, is at 432 Park, but we also have an auctioneer coming right here at Steinway Tower. And as I point the camera towards the sky, you can see that juxtaposition between the original Steinway piano headquarters and the tallest residential part. Which we'll walk right past here. It's a beautiful building, draped in limestone. You could see the designated landmark building here, Steinway Hall, was constructed in 1924 to 1925 to the designs of Warren and Wetmore for Steinway & Sons, the piano manufacturing firm that has been a dominant force in its industry since the 1860s. How cool is that? And then again, one more shot overlooking 432 Park in the east side. You even have the Steinway & Sons piano plaque here. And they just recently added this awning in front of the original building. So remember, there's 2 components. You do have apartments in this building right here, in the limestone building. They're very nice apartments. Obviously, you're not going to have the good views. If you're looking for views, you got to go to the Steinway Tower, the biggest one. Next on our tour here, we're going to get into the very person who pioneered Billionaires Row, which is a man by the name of Gary Barnett, who is the CEO and founder of Upscale Corporation. And Upscale pioneered Billionaires Row by building 157 West 57th Street, which is this building right here. You'll notice how there's a massive tent right in front of the building. Nobody can go in or out of that building if you're not a resident right now or if you're not a guest at the hotel. And that's because the Park Hyatt New York is inside 157, and they are always booked out for the UN General Assembly. So you have a Secret Service security checkpoint that you have to go through right here. And you also have to go through the checkpoint if you're a guest at the JW Marriott Essex House as well. So as you can see, Park Hyatt New York, you have the security checkpoint here. But I want to point the camera towards the sky to show you the facade of the building. And you notice how some of the glass is two-tone glass. It's made to resemble a waterfall. The architect for the exterior of the building is Christian de Potsen-Park, and he wanted it to look like this because if you stand across the street and the sunlight hits the building, it looks like water is cascading down the building. So remember, the exterior, the architect, Christian de Potsen-Park, but the interiors is Thomas Juel Hansen, who is also on Sutton Tower, which is over by Sutton Place. And this side, or I should say this entrance, is for the condo owners or the renters. So if you rent an apartment at 157 or you own, you would go in door number 2. There is a restaurant inside 157 called The Living Room, and as a perk, if you own a unit in there, you can have your meals catered to your apartment. You also have the 5-star housekeeping services from the Park Hyatt if you own at 157, so it's very unique. The building we're looking at right now is Carnegie Hall, and I'm so excited about this because we finally have the scaffolding down. There was this horrid scaffolding that was covering the entire facade of Carnegie Hall while they were doing the restorations, and they've just done a fantastic job here. This is one of my favorite buildings in New York City, one of the most historic buildings in New York City. And it sits adjacent 157. If you're curious about what an apartment might look like inside 157, we have 2 property tours of 2 distinct different units at 157 up on the channel, and you're more than happy to take a look. You can see a lot of the security details and apparatuses right here. One of my favorite buildings on New York City's Billionaires Row is the Osborne. The Osborne sits at 205 West 57th Street. It has such a unique facade, and right behind it is Central Park Tower. This is the tallest building on New York City's Billionaires Row at 1,550 feet. It was also developed by Upscale, the same developers who pioneered Billionaires Row. But wow, what a great shot of the Carnegie Hall. I'm so glad this is now complete. Standing right here, you could see 157 a little bit better. You could see that checkered blue glass in slightly different tones. We'll cross the street so you could see the facade of Central Park Tower a little bit better. Now you could really see the facade of 157 Steinway and even the Essex House sign. And there is a shot of Central Park Tower. Central Park Tower has a main anchor tenant that is Nordstrom. However, if you're not a big fan of all of the glass skyscrapers, might I suggest 220 Central Park South is the building of choice for you on Billionaires Row. That was developed by Vornado in partnership with the New York icon of an architect, Robert A.M. Stern. You have that beautiful limestone facade. Robert A.M. Stern also did 15 Central Park West, which is nicknamed the Limestone Jesus Building. And he also did 520 Park Avenue. In any event, here's the main entrance to Central Park Tower, 217 Central Park, or 217 West 57th Street. And then here is a shot of Central Park Tower. You might notice this piece that's jutting out right here. That's the Central Park Tower cantilever. And it cantilevers over the Art Student League of New York. Now you might be wondering why that is. Well, another building, 220 Central Park South, is slightly blocking the Central Park views of Central Park Tower. So Gary Barnett was definitely not going to stand for that. So he went to the Art Students League of New York and offered them multiple millions of dollars to buy the air rights over the Art Student League of New York so they could build out this way to extend the apartment units to preserve some of these Central Park views. Many people don't know, but in New York City, air is also for sale. So it's not like you could just buy a plot of land and build as tall as you want. You have to accumulate the appropriate air rights to stack them on top of one another in order to build as tall as you want. Now, at the beginning of the video, we talked about Citadel's 350 Park Avenue. You might be asking yourself, how is it possible that Citadel is going to be able to build 350 Park Avenue 1,650 feet tall? Well, they cut a deal with the Catholic Church. They purchased the air rights from the Catholic Diocese over St. Patrick's Cathedral. And they used that to accumulate more air rights so they could build a mega tall tower that will rival Jamie Dimon's. Interesting stuff. This is now 57th Street and Broadway. We're going to cross to the north. And we'll quickly check out 220 Central Park South. This is looking up towards Columbus Circle. This big black building you see here is 1 Central Park West, which is the Trump International Hotel and Tower. Right in front of the Trump International Hotel and Tower is 15 Central Park West. That was developed by the Zeckendorf developers, as we've mentioned before, in partnership with Robert A.M. Stern. That was built in the depths of the great financial crisis, but still achieved a complete and total sellout at record-breaking price per square foot levels. The former CEO of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein, has a really nice unit at 15 Central Park West. Wow, the sky looks really, really pretty. It's almost like this cotton candy sky you can see here. The building with the 2 towers that are luminescent is the Deutsche Bank Center. That building was originally developed by Related, and it was originally called the AOL Time Warner Center until Deutsche Bank, which is the German bulge bracket investment bank, took over as the main tenant. Deutsche Bank used to have their main offices down on Wall Street at 60 Wall Street. They were the last standing major investment bank to be located on the physical street of Wall Street. Again at 60 Wall, and now they are here at Columbus Circle. To the left, you'll have that gorgeous limestone of 220 Central Park South. To the right, you have Central Park Tower. You can notice that they're very, very close together. Hence why Gary Burnett set up that cantilever deal and bought out the air rights from the Art Student League of New York. Wall Street hedge fund titan Ken Griffin of Citadel owns, I believe, about $240 million worth of real estate in this building. And similar to Steinway Tower, there's also 2 components to 220 Central Park South. There's the main tower that sits at 950 feet tall, but you also have the villas, which are these beautiful villa-like apartments that overlook Central Park. You can see just how beautiful it looks here. So the original building, or I should say the main building that's to your left, is 950 feet tall, but this building are the villas. You can kind of see the spiral staircases that go up. A little bit of an interesting fact, but when Robert A.M. Stern and the Zeckendorf developers were working on 15 Central Park West, they used the same exact limestone that was cut from the Indiana rock quarry that was used to build the Empire State Building. Let me know what you guys like better. Do you like the glass skyscrapers better? Or do you like the stunning limestone? Let me know what you think. Here's a better shot of that cantilever. I'll give you guys an added bonus on this walking tour. I want to show you Alwyn Court. Alwyn Court is stunning on both the inside and the outside. But if you're visiting New York, you gotta promise me that you'll come to the corner of 6th Avenue and 58th Street. And I want you to stand on the corner during both the daytime and the nighttime and take a photo right here. Or excuse me, 7th Avenue, not 6th, I apologize. So I want you to come to 58th Street and 6th and take a photo of this building. The architecture is stunning, and you have this very, very striking juxtaposition between the old New York and the new New York. To the left, you have the New York Athletic Club, which is also a beautiful building. And then you have the J.W. Marriott Essex House, which is one of my personal favorites. Here's another shot of 157 from the north. This is a very unique shot of Central Park Tower on the right, 157, and Steinway. So here is the back of Steinway Tower. This is the private garage. So you'll have the little valet through here. They never have the garage open, but if I zoom in, you could see those apartments that are in the original Steinway building, and then looking up at that tower. It's unfortunate because they always have the garage doors down, and I really want to show you guys what it looks like inside. But give you a little sneak peek here. It's really quite beautiful. And then that's a model of the Steinway Tower there. So you never have to really see the street. You can just pull right in here and walk right through the doors. And this is 6th Avenue, looking down towards Radio City, as well as the World Trade Center. Here's the restaurant, Quality Italian. And that's the 57th Street station. Alright, if you guys enjoyed that walking tour, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and as always, we will see you in the next one, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.